All right. Hey, everybody. This is Michelle. I am so excited to have you all here. I have some great stuff for you. And first of all, thank you so much. Somebody said they're doing a cat whistle. Appreciate it. And thumbs up. Thanks. Great. Oh, thank you. Somebody likes my blue. Um, so, for those of you who don't know me, I'm just going to go over this really quick. My name is Michelle, and I'm a full time author and a successful writing coach. And I want to really help you all with a game plan. One of the things that I have been finding is that a lot of people have been having the issue of why they can't write. Now, if you will let me know really quick, how many of you have or have not, let me know if you have or have not published, or I'll just say, do you write? Have you written anything? Let me know, and let me know if you've written something. Let me know you've published. Okay, I've got some people who have published, because I want to make sure that I am scratching where you are specifically itching. Okay. All right, great. So let's get going here. And okay, looking at my time. All right, so I just really want to make sure that you all feel the love and you know that I'm very happy that you're here, and so that you'll understand what's going on. When I was talking earlier about the questions I get, because I'm a full time author and I do a lot of stuff online, I tend to get a lot of people that I do not know contacting me all the time. And of recent, I have been getting people that contact me um, about issues where they cannot write. Some of them are people who have never written before, but they want to write, and they have. I actually had a few people tell me they took time off from their full time job to try to get a book written because they felt like they'd be able to do that. And lo and behold, they ended up the whole time not being able to produce. And it was really scary for them. Likewise, I have some people that are very experienced, and they can't write anymore. And I will tell you, for me, it was getting to be a hit and miss. It was just like struggle, like pulling teeth. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be another way to do this. There's got to be another way. And so the way I am is I decided that I was going to look into it and practice it and get it perfected and test it out on a few people to see if it works. And so that's what I did. Now, I don't like to read slides to you. I do have some stuff on here, but I just want to assure you that if you are trying to write, if you are a self-publishing business, if you're wanting to give this a go, you're in the right place. You know, if you want to be able to become an independent publisher, maybe you have kids that you are tired of paying for other people to raise them, whether they are little kids in daycare or they are latchkey kids after school. You want to be there to raise them. You know, that's something that I get from a lot of other people that are like, I just really want to be able to be at home with my kids. On the other spectrum, I have some people that say, hey, I've got an elderly parent or parents that I need to be at home to help watch and oversee in their twilight years. And I want to be able to make sure that they are taken care of in a fashion that is right for them. Okay. So those might be some of the things, but I definitely want you to know that, I'm going to have some amazing, eye opening, actionable information for you. And when you leave here, you will know how to get started on some stuff. Okay. So, with that being said, um, these are some of the things that you're going to learn if you stick around and hang out with me. I'm going to show you my specific tested and proven process that I use to create, publish, and profit. And I'm going to be showing you how I do it, based on conquering things that you may not have known. Now, this is for the purpose of helping you clear out and get prepared to write, because I don't want to overwhelm you and I don't want to be here all night. We're going to be learning how to use 3 top secrets for you being able to start or finish your stories faster. I'm going to be covering the biggest mistake that probably you and most writers make, that makes it even hard for you to even finish a story. So just know you're in the right place. All right. How's that sound, everybody? Is that what you want to know? What you want to get? And let me write myself a note because somebody on here had asked me to cover what I meant by ugly writing. So let me write that down right now so I can remember to address that because I don't think that I have that on the slides. But I'm going to address that too. And if there are other stuff now, don't get too wild. But if there's other stuff you want me to touch on, put it in the comments, and I'll see if I can get to it. Okay. All right. Thank you. Big applause. All right. So let me just tell you a little bit about me. I started writing in 2010. I was in a very stressful grad school program, and I didn't have an idea. I didn't have a clue as to what I was doing. I was winging it. I'm self-taught, still self-taught, and it was basically a hot mess. I ended up publishing, and the thing is nobody, since I didn't know about writing, no one told me that it was supposed to take a long time to write. So in my first year of putting out crap, that's basically what it was. I published 13 little short stories, and I was just doing what I saw other people doing, and I started making money. My reviews were horrible. I think I had an average of barely 3 rating. But my reviews, I started getting, 5 reviews here, 10 reviews there, whatever. I had stuff like people said, "This is a hot mess." I had one person say, I read it because I just could not believe somebody would publish this. And it hurt my feelings. I didn't know any authors. I didn't know anything about the publishing industry. I felt like me against them. It felt very cliquish, like I didn't belong because I wasn't a traditional trained. I didn't have an MFA, or I didn't grow up writing. And so it was hard, but I decided that I was going to do this because my grad school program was either going to kill me or land me in the insane asylum. So I struggled until I got what I call it. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit about that with you. So now, I couldn't go and pull a lot of them because I was like, I'd be here forever. But I just, pulled some of the little books over the years that still make me money to this day. They're like 7 years old or whatever. And I stuck with it. I really toughed it out, and I learned to just write. And the books got better and better, and they continue to sell. And, just an iteration to let you guys know that you can do this. You just have to write. But then it was something I uncovered something after hundreds of hours of research and, not feeling good enough or worthy enough. And actually, I know it's been thousands of hours of writing in the desolation. I began to tap into some secrets. I developed some methods. I began to have a process to produce, and I became obsessed like a crazy person. So much so. Now, let me tell you this part. When I was in this grad school program, we couldn't work. If you were in that program, you received a stipend because we were grad assistants and did research and those types of things. And so your job was working for the university and whomever you were assigned to um, as your professor. And that really meant grunt work. We would proctor their tests for the undergrads and grad students under us. We would run their research. I mean, it was just a lot of grunt work, and it was hard. And the stipend that we got paid was not comparable to what a grown up like me with a mortgage and car payments and all this kind of stuff could go through. So I actually was almost destitute. I mean, in fear of losing my house. So I had to do something. And so I'm just letting you know that I was in the pressure, in the fire, trying to figure this out and keep it on the down low on top of all that. So I'll never forget one of my friends, Shannon. She was in the program with me, and she had little kids, and her husband wasn't working. He was going through some stuff, and she begged me. She says, "I know you're doing something you won't tell me." She says, "But you don't have that such a stressed look on your face like you used to." And I finally broke down. This was like 2011, 2012, and finally broke down and told her I was writing. And she was like, "Oh, teach me." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Teach me. You're a great teacher. Teach me." And so that's when I decided to take the best of what I learned because, I mean, she was worse than me. The girl had the shakes. I mean, she was losing weight. I gain weight when I stress, she loses weight when she stresses, and the girl was, bone thin. So I had to do right by her. So what I did was I took it, I tweaked it, and I decided to learn how to implement to get it right. And then I put my unique spin on it. Now, remind you, I am not a fit. I'm not. Um, I'm self-taught, so I was like, oh, it's like the blind leading the blind. But she was so ready to do this that she was willing to follow me, and thus it happened. She started writing as well. Now, I'm not gonna lie and say there aren't setbacks, struggles, and stress. I'm just not gonna lie to you. My very first um, royalty check from Amazon. And when I say my first one, I mean, I put books up and didn't sell anything like the first month. How would you like to put up? I think I put up three. I put up three and nobody, nothing. I didn't even know how to get people because first of all, I had to keep it on the down low because if my school found out, I could lose my stipend. I could lose my income. And so I didn't know other people. So I was just like hoping and praying. And I just, like I said, I just kept writing, putting the books out. The covers were hideous. The stories were all over the place. Genre who? Trope what? I didn't know what that was. And so I kept, like I said, I kept on, but I was determined. And you know what happened? You guessed it, success began to start. And I'm actually looking at some of the people who are talking to me and putting in stuff in the questions and things while I'm going through this, saying, "Yep, I remember your story," and that really helps my heart because look at this. 7 years later, here I am, and I know no one has to remind me. I'm very grateful that I know I've touched thousands of lives. I have people, run up to me now and tell me, "Thank you. You helped me put food on the table every month because you were willing to do this." And so because of that, it's in my bones, and I just have to do this. So anyway, when I talked about, some of my successful books, what I did was, even if I wasn't making money, I kept writing and kept publishing because that's all I knew to do. I didn't know how to do all the fancy smancy building a list and all of that. And the thing is, I still sell books. Now, I will tell you, those first 13, I remember, and I was like, and it's funny it was 13 because I was like, that was a kiss of death. I actually delisted them, and the computer that they were on, it was a PC, and they were on the hard drive. This was kind of before I really understood the power of cloud, and so I lost them. Those and like 30 other little stories in different states of finish that I lost. And I mourned it, but hey, it is what it is. But you know what? You keep on writing. I have this mantra: if you don't write and publish, you don't eat. And so that's kind of how I live my life. But I just want you to understand, I went from making a few $100s a month back in those days. And I'm going to tell you, when you have nothing, I mean, you get paid once a semester. And when you get paid once a semester, you have to take that money and pay everything you can. And there's usually nothing left over. How would you like to pay everything in September and know you're not going to see money again until January and there's no money for food? It was down to that. And so having 200, 300, $400 coming in from book sales that I write once, put up, and then they come back, that was life changing. I don't know where some of you are. I don't know what your situation is, but I do know this, that if you can just suspend disbelief just for a little bit and believe, you can do this. Now I live off of my book royalties. See, I'm not one of those people that's a theorist where I read all these books and then I say, "Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great." And then I give it to you. I am in these trenches every day writing and, looking at the fact that I still have grown people's bills and there is no other person giving money into this household, and so I have to know what's going to work. And I have to do it where I am not frazzled. I'm not chasing good money after bad and doing stuff in hope marketing. And over the years, I've been blessed that I am a consistent six-figure earner. I'm able to be full time. I am a successful writing coach. And it's all about taking baby steps and having that step-by-step successful process. I, you guys, I I just, I mean, I'm kind of getting overwhelmed because thinking about where I came from and where I know you are going to be if you just trust yourself, it just blesses my heart. So anyway, fast forward to the 6 month, and I put a few of my series down. I have some others that are published. Some of them I don't have book covers for because they're in anthologies and book sets, and some of them haven't been released yet, so I can't show those to you. But I just want you to know that I really do practice what I preach. I am writing, I am doing this, and you can too. And so just trust yourself. There's a reason why you're here with me. There's a reason why you're here with me now. Okay. So, how many of you, excuse me, how many of you are in the process of trying to start your writing career? Let me know. And I'm going to answer a question that you may or may not be asking while you put that in here because I want to know, where you guys are and scratch where you're itching. I get this asked sometimes. If you're so successful, why teach? And I am going to just say it is part of my life calling. Now, I don't teach all the time, and some of the people in here who have been my previous students know I'll take a break and I'll go. But every now and again, I get I get to where that itch happens. And I'm going to tell you, it is kind of like the universe, God, whatever you want to believe, is beckoning me back into my life calling because when I teach, my writing gets better. The more I share, because I don't try to hide stuff, the more I share, my stories come hard and fast. I get motivated to be better and I get student results. If you want a high, help somebody else do something that will change their life for the rest of their life for the better. That's one of the reasons. And so it is, oh man, it's amazing. Now I need to also tell you guys this for you guys who don't know. The first half of my life, this is second career for me. So the first half of my life, I was a therapist and a business analyst concurrently. So I worked for a nonprofit as a therapist, and I worked for a big corporation as a business analyst. So every day I was using my analytical brain and my creative brain to solve problems. As a business analyst, I worked with data, research, pricing models, all of those financial things, revenue management. As a therapist, I worked with people who sometimes were only there because the judge said they had to come see me. And I was dealing with real issues, people losing kids, hooked on things, addiction, uh, deficiencies, abnormalities, and all those different things. And I'm going to tell you, after 25 years, it's hard not to do the stuff that you've learned. And so, my superpower, as I like to say it, my superpower is being able to see the magnificence in people and bring it out and be able to get the entire person integrated into this creative process. So, I think the reason why I'm so successful, because I had a million plus book seller who had gotten stuck and could not write, and it was bad because they had publishing contracts that were in jeopardy and they could not write. And someone told them to reach out to me, and I worked with them for a few weeks, and they are back writing now. And they asked me, how did you get me to do this? And I had to answer that question. And it's because writers don't understand that there is a creative process that you go through. And I'm going to be talking to you about that tonight. That's one of the main secrets. And I'm able to help people connect emotions, feelings, thoughts, behaviors, and actions to help you produce the creative works. All right, so we got some people in here who have published. We got some people who are trying to start. Oh, thank you. One of my students is in here and says that I'm a wonderful teacher. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I don't take any of this for granted by the grace of God. So that's why I teach. It makes a difference when you know why somebody is doing something. So I wanted to talk to you about the result. So the result has been over 15,000 students who have gone through to write, publish fiction through some of these programs that I've put through Good Fiction Fast. Some of you may have heard of some of these, and if you haven't, it's okay. Creative fiction writing for Kindle, story rescue, notes to novels, writing smexy, write great romance. I have some others. I just put some of them on there. And up here, I am so tickled that these are some of my successful students that are paying the bills with what they write. And I didn't even grab all of them. I just hurried up and grabbed a few to let you know that this is real. You will have your branding. You will have all this kind of stuff. And I mean, because we don't hold anything back. And down here, you can see where I'm teaching. I'm talking to some of my reader fans, some of the reader fans who came to see me and get book signings and that kind of stuff. And that's going to be your life too. So this is the real deal. Like I said, this is not oh yay, yes, you see some students, yay, awesome. So this is not about hope marketing. This is not about me trying to get you to buy what I'm selling just based on, oh, I think you can do this. No, we do this every day and you're going to do it. No difference. Okay, no difference. All right, so um I'm going to say my entire life in business has changed based on me creating my own self-publishing business. And like I said before, if I can do it, you can. You can too. It's all about a system. All about a system. Now, this is the part that if anybody had told me, I would have been freaking out. These are just some of the pictures, like I said, I grabbed real quick of my network of authors. And when I took these pictures, this is not, and I'm happy to say this is not where it's just, oh, I was at the conference and I took pictures with them. Some of these people I call my friends. So like Sherilyn. Has anybody ever heard of Sherilyn Kenyon? The great author Sherilyn Kenyon, the fantasy author who will be at what will she be at Dragon Con in Atlanta this year, and I'm going to meet up with her. Thea Harrison, J.S. Scott. Well, what about Mark Dawson? Now, I mean, I hung out with Mark last year. He's a very humble person. Love him. What about Brandon Sanderson or Millie Taton or Sylvia Day or Nailingi Singh or Jane Porter or Rachel Zanetti? So these are some of the people that when you consistently do the stuff, you'll walk up to them and they'll be like, "Oh, Michelle, it's so good to see you." Or, a lot of times when they first meet you, they'll probably call you by uh your pen name. Okay. So, is my sound okay? Because some people said my sound had gone, but okay. I just wanted to make sure it's okay. Somebody said it returned. So just you will get to where all of those people that you thought were so far off, they'll be right there and you'll be able to talk to them. So I just want you all to know where you can be. So again, a couple of things to remember. Take baby steps. Follow a system. And overthinking is not a requirement. And that's where a lot of people have issues. All right. So let's talk about some goals. One of the things I want you to do is whenever you're trying to do this, keep in mind your goals. For instance, you want to turn your fans and your audience into paying readers. You want to be able to generate income. People do not realize that this is a business and you need to generate income. Of course, be entertaining. Now, the next three, when I have surveyed people who are successfully writing, as well as people who want to write, do you realize these are the three things that they say they want? And they are you ready? Independence, freedom, and respect. One thing about being a published author, it gives you the self-published. Let me clean that up. It gives you the independence to be able to do what you need. Last year, I was courted by a lot of publishing houses and agents. And you know what? When they started showing me what they could offer me in their contracts, I realized that I didn't, quote unquote, need them because I have my machine going And my machine is continuing to spur me forward where I'm making either just as much or more than they proposed that I would make. And, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. So there is a powerful independence. What about the independence of if you want to go somewhere and oh, okay, I want to go on this trip. Like I'm going to be taking a trip to the fjords next year to do some research for Vikings. I don't have to try to save up the time off from my job. I don't have to beg for a raise to do that. I'm just going to write some books and do what I do, and I'll be, enjoying myself. I travel way more than I did when I worked for somebody else. And so it's a great independence that leads to freedom. And what about respect? When people ask me what I do for a living and I tell them I write for a living, you can just see it come over their face. There is so much respect. And I have not once, not twice, but many times. I mean, Walmart gets me. I'll be in Walmart and somebody will tell me something. I think it's the therapist in me. So I'll normally have people telling me their deep, dark secrets. They'll ask me what I do and they'll pull out their phone. And I tell them, I write for a living. And they'll say, well, what, do you have a pen name or whatever? And I've had people stand there and while I'm talking to them, buy all my books of a series and say, God, I'm like, what? It's an amazing thing. But another thing to keep in mind with your goals is that you want to increase your skills to become an expert. This is a lifelong mastery kind of thing. I'm not going to lie to you. People want to tell you, oh, you've never written before, but I can teach you how to write in a weekend. How many of you guys have seen those kind of claims out there, and you get the little $2 product and you sit down and you try to go through what they do, and there's so many gaping holes. I mean, there are grand canyons from one point to the next and you don't know how to get to the next point that they say you need to get to. I always laugh when I see stuff that says things like just do this. There's a lot of stuff going on between just and doing this. And so those are some of the things, but you are going to have to keep in mind that your goal is to polish those skills to become an expert, and it's lifelong. You want to increase your stable income, and you want to have a stable business. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but I want you to just understand this is not a shooting star kind of thing. And if you don't pace yourself, you are going to run into issues. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. And I'm going to tell you, by the time you get off of this training with me tonight, you're going to know so much more than people who are actually in the business about how not to stop writing, how to keep the writing flow going, because you're going to know how, and I'm going to give you some, you're going to know why, and I'm going to give you some hows. Okay. How does that sound? I hope that sounds good. And then the last thing that I want to make sure that you keep as a goal in your mind, if you do this, you're going to be good to go. Help people. Please help people. Just because you're writing a story or a how-to book or a memoir, that does not mean that you are doing it just to stroke your own ego. Whenever you are writing a story or creating something, you are doing it through entertainment. But I like to use the word edutainment because you're entertaining them as well as educating them. You want to leave people better than you found them. And story is the power to do that like nothing else. Trust me, it is. All right. So you guys, let's go on and get into some of the things that I want you to take forward with you as we really move into what we're going to be doing. First of all, I want you to get rid of these myths. The process is going to be too hard. I get people telling me, well, I'm not good with grammar. Honey, I'm not either. And trust me, they have programs that will help you with that. Anybody say Grammarly? I love Grammarly. What about the technology is too hard or confusing? I have gotten on today. Oh my gosh. Today I got on Skype with someone, they showed their screen, and I walked them through publishing their first book on Amazon. That made me feel like I had just delivered a baby. And it was great. And the thing is, I was humbled because it's a very, very successful, big time, personality in the self-improvement space, and they are finally starting to write books instead of just putting their recordings up. And I was floored and humbled, but they saw that it wasn't as intimidating as they thought. And I mean, when I told them click this button, I took time. I said, I want you to read this so you know what you're clicking and why. And they were like, you're such a good teacher. And it made me feel good because I told them, I'm going to be teaching people tonight. And they were like, good. So Don't let technology uh, hurt you. There's always a way. You can find someone. If you know somebody out there, you can try to see if it's on Google or YouTube, but don't let that deter you. And I get this a lot. Who's going to read my crap? Y'all, I'm telling you, if people read my train wrecks and now I pay my mortgage, like, it's something today when you can press the button and pay your mortgage because of the books you wrote a few months ago. It blows my mind every month that I pay my mortgage by people reading the stuff rambling around in my head. All right. What about this? I can't write. I didn't grow up writing. I didn't grow up wanting to write. That's another thing. Oh, I can't write fiction. You don't have to write fiction. You can write conversational nonfiction. There's a lot you can do. Nobody's going to buy my stories. Nobody's going to buy my book. It takes too long to write a story. Yes, it does take too long to write a story if you do some of the stuff I'm going to talk about in just a minute, or if you don't practice. This is kind of like any skill training. You have to practice. You just have to. My book has to be perfect. And trust me, I run into that all the time with people, and I have to remind myself the timing isn't right. I get people to tell me the timing isn't right. My kid has to do this. I have to go there. My husband, my spouse has to do this. The timing is never right. That's a myth. You just get started. You know, I have to give away a lot of books before I can charge, and that's just not feasible. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is write, publish, and try it out. Or I want to write, but I don't have any good story ideas. So if any of these myths are in your mind, okay, just stop the madness. Stop it, okay? I want you to suspend those disbeliefs. So it's time to get into the meat of why you came here. I'm just gonna put them out here. Here are the 3 secrets. Now, last week I had lost my slides, and I did a training. So I think a few of you have gone through this. So tonight is actually going to be a little different because this is what I really wanted to say. So the 3 secrets are your expectation or expectations, comparison, and where to start. Don't worry, we're going to go back through these, but I want to get through this, okay? So I want you to understand that everybody, you fall into one or two categories. Either you know exactly what you want to write, or you not sure what you write, or you have no clue what you want to write. And it's really okay. I get a lot of people that say, Michelle, if you can help me get an idea for my book, I'll be thankful. You don't have to have an idea for your book. What you have to have is you just have to have an understanding of what your expectations need to be, who you need to compare yourself to, and where you need to start. And those 3 secrets will help you. Don't believe me? Stick around and let me prove it. All right. So I want to get a few steps to help you get the most out of what I'm going to say. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to pay attention. Please pay attention. Don't discount the simplicity of what I'm going to say, because I'm going to take you from there. And a lot of times, I mean, you're not chatting to each other, but a lot of the people on here have taken courses from me before, and I still have people coming back to me and saying, Michelle, you remember when you said that I would remember it and it would happen? Oh my gosh, it's happening. So pay attention. Don't discount if you think it's simple. But I do want you to suspend your disbelief, because we're going to go in a different direction than you might have thought of. But this is really going to help you do what you need to with writing. Don't allow your mind to override your wisdom, and test it for yourself. So you can take notes, you can do all that great stuff, but this is what I want you to do from here on out. Okay? All right. Secret number 1. I'm going to be talking about expectation. Now, one of the things that and you guys, I'm sorry, but I think my slides are so cute. I made those slides. Yay! Anyway, I digress. Let me stop being loopy here. All right, so expectation, that's the number 1. That's not in any order, but that's one of the big secrets. So the expectations, there is this study that came out, and there was a TED Talk that was about it, that they looked at the electric charge of people when they had an expectation, good or bad, or increased or not increased. And they found that what you expect to get is what you get. Not what you want, not what you hope, not what you think, not even what you feel. It's what you expect. And the difference because people are like, well, what about feelings and expectation? The difference is expectation, whether you realize it or not, has some type of either visual or sensory input or imprint on your subconscious. When you expect something, you either stamp it, draw it, imprint it, emboss it, but some kind of way you imprint into your subconscious what you want. I mean, what you're expecting to get. It's almost like self-prophecy. And when I learned that, I was like, what? But I actually, like I said before, I asked you to do the things that I've done. Suspend your disbelief and test it out. So, oh, thank you. Somebody did agree with me that my slides are beautiful. I appreciate that. So what I did was I started testing it out. And I sat down and wrote down, how do I use expectation? And what I realized was that every book that I had written, either on time or faster, I had expected that I would do it. I thought I was doing it by sheer force of will, but I was really doing it by a recipe of expectation, determination, and focus. And it was just really powerful. There were some times when I didn't expect to write anything and I was just writing or whatever and just, whatever. And I didn't get anything finished. I don't know about you guys, but I have a file where I keep just little writing things that I'll do. Like, some days I'll just say, I don't want to write a book. I just want to write some stuff and I'll just throw it in there. And because I don't have an expectation to finish, guess what? To this date, I've never turned one of those little writing exercises into a finished work. And so I was like, okay, there's some validity to this. But what I also want to talk about is the fact that when you have expectation, that delves into the area of emotions. And I'll be talking a lot about that tonight because the way we're going to present it, you're going to have some eye-opening things. So, with your expectation, I am going to open up a whole new world to you. And let me just show it to you, and then I'll get into it. I am going to be talking to you. Let me go back. I'm going to talk to you about the Createxiety process power grid. What you are looking at is you are looking at probably about 10 years of formal training, experience, both with myself and working with therapy clients, writing clients, to help me get to this point, to get this little 9-point thing in front of you. When I was in my grad program, I was studying the creative process of psychology and how we bring things into being, how we create, doing research on it, and deep diving. And my studies brought me across many great thinking minds. And one of the things that I learned through this process that has been something that has been life-changing and career-altering is that the creative process naturally, listen to me, people, the creative process naturally produces anxiety. Have you ever wondered why so many artists, uh, musicians, especially writers, have bouts of anxiety, panic, and depression? Have you ever just thought about that? I mean, let that marinate for a minute because I really want you to get it. Because when I tell you why you can't write and I'm about to show you some stuff, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, oh my word. What happens in the process? And what I've done is I've taken the word create and anxiety and kind of smushed them together and put it into a visual kind of process so that you can see it. And what I've done is I've divided it into 3 phases. And so the first phase is the initial phase. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this and give you a little more detail. But I really kind of wanted to take this concept and make it as simple as possible. And I'm going to tell you, I've been sharing this with people who are not writers, who are just business entrepreneurs. And they're like, oh my God, this has helped me so much, And like I said before, it has been a culmination of years of learning this stuff and understanding what it does. So when you have, going back to like when I said expectation, the reason why I talk about expectation is because expectation works with decision. So, like, if you have an expectation, you've decided to do something. I mean, whether you agree with me or not, it's still the truth. You've decided to do something. We have proven that there are neurotransmitters that when you make a decision, neurotransmitters are released, and a lot of times they're released from the gut or the vagus nerve up to the brain to prepare the body to move. So when you make a decision, we understand now biologically that your body is ready to move before your brain even knows it. How weird is that? And you wonder why you can't write because you got all this stuff going on. All right, so here's the process. The process is you get a desire to write, okay, or you get a desire to create. You create something, and so you get that desire, and thus the creative energy is produced, released, bursts forth, or whatever. The creative energy, you know you're in it because you're actually doing something. And when I say doing something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are sitting down and writing, but sometimes your mind is spinning where you're getting all these ideas. How many of you have gotten, say, oh, I got to write a book. And then all of a sudden, you can be driving at the grocery store, washing dishes, watching TV, and all of these scenarios and wouldn't it be cool ifs and all these things start popping up and coming up for you. Have you ever had that? Let me know, yes or no. Because I want you to see how even if you think you're detached from this Createxiety process, you're not. Everybody goes through this. Okay. So what happens is the creative energy is really an emotive thought. I'm going to take you through the spiral so you can see it a little bit more. Trust me, when you get through with this, like I said, before y'all leave here tonight, when you get through with this, you're going to know so much more than other creatives, and you're going to be armed to be able to write and sustain your writing. Now, I know you thought I was going to teach you some little easy onesie twosie how to put a word on a page, but trust me, you don't have to. If you know this stuff, when you sit down, the words will come because you are doing what it takes to fuel and to clean up how the words need to come. Not to be gross or graphic, but I'm going to be. This Createxiety process is what kind of helps you to be able to clean out all the gook so that you can have the biggest, widest flow of being able to write. All right, so you've got the desire, then the creative energy starts, and then guess what happens? Anxiety. Boom. Now, the reason why you get anxiety, I'm going to go over that in a minute, and I'm going to take these step by step, but I'm just going to do a quick overview. Anxiety is produced. Then you get into what I like to call the valley of despair. And this is kind of where you're going to go through some struggle. You're going to go through the frustration of the unknown because even if you've written a million books, each new book is different. Each new creation is different. Can you imagine how Michelangelo must have felt when they gave him that piece of marble that they said they messed up and now they need him to create a miracle? If you know the story of how he came about creating David, you'll know that there was this prized piece of marble that the city of Florence had gotten, and some other person had tried to work with it and had messed it up, and it had sat languished for quite some time, and they finally said, well, we need to check with Michelangelo and see if he can do something with it. And he took it on, and he had to figure out what he could make out of that. So the commission wasn't for David, it was for him to just make something out of this beautiful piece of marble that had been ruined. That's why David stands the way he does. So can you imagine his frustration of the unknown, the emotional struggle, and the failure cycles that he had to go through? So I call this the valley of despair. But once you power through these, you then start getting that initial production. And I'm going to say, I put initial production over here, but you probably need to put it floating here because you're going to have some starts and stops in your failure cycle. You're going to be writing. And most people don't understand that when you're first writing, it takes you a longer time to write and get started than getting in the flow. You know, you have people like the famous psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who came out with flow or in the zone and Zen writing and Zen creation. He talks a lot about the creative process and flow. But people don't realize that you don't get into this area until all this has fired up and started happening. And most people don't want to get here. This is what they want. They want desire, they want the creative energy, and then boom, they want a published book. you know, I was talking to someone the other day, and he was talking about how when people come to him, because he's a publisher, when people come to him, he said they don't want to write a book. He said they want to get a book. And I thought that was really different. I was like, you are telling the truth. Uh, so anyway, yeah, and somebody just said about the Sistine Chapel, the same thing. He didn't want to do it, and he actually copped out. I think he left like for 3 years, kind of escaped, and the Pope commanded him to do the Sistine Chapel. Talking about Michelangelo again. So yeah, this is a process, and I want you to get it. So now let's look at each one of these in more detail, so you can understand the Createxiety process. And when you, trust me, when you sit down to create something or write, this is going to be in the back of your mind, and you're going to go through these and you're going to be able to write because of this. All right. So let's look at the first phase. This is I call it the activation phase. So when you get the desire, it's that spark and the catalyst that gets you started, and it's what gets that chain reaction going. Then that creative energy is produced when the desire activates it, and it becomes very powerful and potent. Some people experience heightened emotions where they get euphoric even when the create energy starts to happen. But then they have a crash. You get those people. Have you ever had those shooting stars? They start all of these different ideas and then they can't finish them. It's because they are moving from the creative energy into the anxiety. And so the anxiety comes, and I really want to talk to you about this part since you get it. The anxiety comes because when you have that initial thrust of energy that's potent and the ability to create the very immortality, it produces a fear of the unknown within the body. So anything that is new is called unknown, and unknown equals bad, and bad produces anxiety, and anxiety produces the fear response of fight or flight. You activate the defense mechanism of homeostasis that tries to put you back into balance, because balance is how the body counts itself as healthy. And balance means you weren't doing that before, so we're going to make you go back to what you were doing before, which is nothing, you know? And so therefore, you create anxiety. Now, you may trigger sympathetic or parasympathetic shock, and those two fancy words simply mean sympathetic means in the head, and you'll see this again in the presentation, but it's when you kind of like start spiraling out. Thoughts overwhelming, hard and fast, coming at you. If you were to take the levels of your brain, you would be in beta, but you would be in super high beta, where your brain is just spinning. How many of you have had that happen? You decide you want to get something done, you sit down, you start trying to do it, and then all of a sudden somebody is saying, that's me. Yes, yes, oh yes, that is exactly me. So there are a lot of people that understand you are in sympathetic shock because that is a byproduct of anxiety because of the creative energy. Some people get into parasympathetic shock, so that where the sympathetic shock is all in the head, and that is the fight response, meaning you're trying to fight through it, you're trying to power through it to get it done. The parasympathetic shock happens in the body, and that's the flight. And when you get into parasympathetic shock, you actually kind of like go numb, apathetic. You might get tired. Have you gotten sleepy every time you try to sit down and work? You get sleepy? Somebody said raising hand. That's cute. You get sleepy, too tired to focus. I mean, it's yawn city, yawning all over the place. You're in parasympathetic shock, and that is the numbness. Have you ever heard of the term frozen like a deer in headlights? That's parasympathetic shock, excuse me. And so what ends up happening is when you hit this anxiety, it is natural. And I don't want you to think that it is bad, that it happens to you. But what I am going to do is I'm going to give you a quick shortcut. When you get to these points and you are spinning around in circles, either you're that person that has been working all day and got nothing done, or you're that person you wanted to work all day and you ain't getting anything done because you were sleepy, you goofed off, you did other stuff, procrastination, any and everything to avoid. Remember, I said parasympathetic is the flight response. So that's where you have avoidance techniques. The sympathetic is where you're spiraling out, trying to force it to come, trying to make it happen, doing a lot and not having anything to show for it. The shortcut, when you get into anxiety, not if, and I am not going to ask you to fight it. What I want you to do is I want you to reframe it. Biologically speaking, chemical wise, and within your total range of control and management and power, change the feeling of anxiety to a notion of excitement. So, the way you do this is mindfully with intention and movement. So, if you have to, you notice how you'll find fighters when they're about to go into the ring, you see them jumping up and down. You can sometimes see them mumbling stuff. This is what they're doing. They're actually doing a reframing of retraining how the body is responding to the adrenaline being released and all of this kind of stuff to get them ready to do something. Instead of it being what they would call nerves or anxiety, it's now, oh dear, let me close that. Remind me later. Sorry, you guys. It is where they are changing the feeling of anxiety into excitement. All right. If you have questions, let me know. I am checking questions, but we're going to keep going. Let's see here. And people like myself often read adrenaline to be focused. So this idea of making anxiety, it makes perfect sense. Great stuff. Awesome. I'm glad this is making sense for you. And like I said before, most people want to tell you how to power through, how to do another writing thing, which is only going to send you more into shock. So I know this might not be what you were expecting, but this is how you start writing. Now, can you see why it's different and why I know it works? Like I said before, 25 years of trying to help people get past stuff that puts them in the grave. I had to come up with ways to actually go to the root problem and not just put cold cream on cancers. This is not about you trying to find out a different way to write. Anybody who wants to write can write. A child can write a novel. You just put one word after another and let the editing programs give it syntax. You can write. Why you can't write is the stuff that you can't see. And that's what this is about. So let's keep going. Okay, so the middle, that valley of despair, where all hell breaks loose, where most people get stuck and they have deserts full of unfinished great ideas, scenarios, situations, and partial manuscripts in certain disrepair. This is where you are, okay? Deal with it. Now let's see. People are writing here. Hold on just a minute. Okay, people like myself often need adrenaline to okay, got it. Great stuff. Okay, so then yes, exactly. So yes. Let me go back to that. Somebody was talking about movement. Let me go back. So when I talk about reframing, what we learn is that when you are faced with anxiety, there is a trigger for survival that makes you feel like you're going to die. Basically, it's a very powerful thing. And so, in order to combat that, movement of the body is a biological answer to the trauma that the logical brain is going through when anxiety is high. So when you start to move the body, you start to move neurotransmitters through the body to let the body know it's alive, it's able to breathe, you're able to do things. So that is why we include not only mind, not intention. That is why you get up and you move and you can say your stuff, you can try to think it or whatever, but move, breathe, and stay it. If anything, all you got to do is say, I'm just excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. And jumping up and down, pacing, any of those things will help you. Does that make sense? I want to make sure everybody is okay with what I'm saying here because Anxiety is real. And I'm going to tell you, if you have anxiety that is untreated, you will develop a process by which every time you try to create, you will get anxious, and the anxiousness unresolved will turn into panic, and thus you will have panic attacks. I know a many of creative person, beautiful creation, lots of portfolio work, who are on Wellbutrin and all these other chemicals because they have so much, their anxiety is so bad. They have clinical depression now. And I have sent this out to many of them, and one of them actually is working on this part right here because they want to get off of all the meds they're on. And so they're working on this very thing. And what they've been doing is going outside and walking for 30 minutes each day at the same time, because it had gotten so bad that when they had a schedule to write, even if they didn't go write, because their body was used to at 9:30 we start writing, the panic attacks would start happening at 9:30. So at 9 they're getting dressed, putting on their tennis shoes, and they're going outside, and they already start their mantra, I'm just excited, I'm just excited. And they're working on it that way. uh, and they are working in conjunction with their doctor, just so you know. Okay, so great question. Thank you so much for asking for me to clarify that. So now I'm going to move into this frustration, and then we're going to move on, and I'm going to let you guys go. So frustration of the unknown. Once you have hit anxiety and now you're turning it into excitement, when you can calm yourself down enough, I'm going to just let you know, you're not going to be free and clear where everything is back to poppy seed fields of bliss. You're going to have frustration because the unknown is still there. That's what triggered the thing in the first place. And the reason why is because you're going to be doing something new, something that the body doesn't know. So each time you do something new, you're building what the body thinks is a new skill set. And the first stage of a skill, of learning a skill, is frustration, because you're not good at it and you don't like to be in that. But one of the things that I want you to do is work with expectation. Remember, we started off with this is the secret, expectation. If you expect to finish the book before you start, then you will truncate the length, meaning you'll shorten the length of time of frustration in your process. So yes, you can hack the length of time you go through the frustration of getting started on a book. And you do that by employing expectation. Remember, expectation imprints on the subconscious what your outcome is going to be. So when you have an expectation, and how I do mine, I didn't even realize this is what I was doing, but I will pretend, visualize, and imagine that I am holding the physical book in my hand with the cover. I feel the weight of the pages. I can feel the pages thumbing through my thumb as I go through it. I even visualize myself signing the inside cover for a reader, and I go through that, and I'm gonna tell you, my books get written. And the funny thing is a lot of the books that I've done like that, I'm in my office right now, and I can turn around and look at those books on my bookshelf. It works, people. Remember, I asked you to suspend disbelief and just test it out. It works. So after you have worked on confronting frustration of the unknown and shortening it by upping your expectation, you're going to have emotional struggle. And I call this the writer's gift. And this is where a lot of people give up, because you're like, I didn't sign up for this crap. And you find that you go through struggles, and a lot of times the struggles are struggles you've never been through before. One of the things I have found about how the creative energy flows is, if you're doing story the way the greats do it and the way I'm going to teach you tonight, what you start doing is you start living some of the stuff on a probably a much lower level, but you start experiencing some of the stuff that you're going to be conveying in your story. So if your main character, this one was very vivid. I had to write a main character, and she could not make a decision. She was indecisive all the time. She would say she was going to do something, and then she just couldn't make up her mind. Well, that's not me, and a lot of people in here know and have worked with me, you know that's not me. But I went through that. I almost got in a car wreck because I was so indecisive. I had said, okay, I'm going to go here. And then um, by the time I'd get down the street, oh, I'm gonna go. I want to go somewhere else. And one time I did that, and I was trying to turn illegally, I should admit, and I almost got hit. I could have wrecked my car and been dead over that. And it shook me. And that's when I started understanding. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going through the create cycle because I was in the midst of the book and I was in the beginning part trying to struggle and find her voice and make her authentic. And I was like, well, thank you, creative energy. And so I learned, embrace that lesson. Don't get yourself killed. Make notes. And then you want to look for the primary or the major theme that's coming through. And then once you get that going, you're going to have failure cycles because remember the I put initial production as next, but in here you're going to be writing. You're going to be writing and you're going to have failure cycles. There are going to be some days you sit down and you want to write 3,000 words and it's a struggle to get 300. Well, that's because this is the perfecting of that skill set that you started over here that's needed for this story. Now, that failure cycle, it is a necessary ingredient for the work because without it, you won't get to refinement. Without going through those failure cycles of writing sections that you may never use for this story, you are going to be able to understand how to make this book the best book you can. So don't despise when you go through the failure cycles. Don't despise when this stuff happens to you. All right, it's when you start Googling what are the symptoms of a heart attack. Oh my gosh, bless your heart. Oh, somebody said they had a panic attack and was Googling the symptoms of a heart attack. See, it's real. I'm gonna tell you guys, it's real. So don't give up. All right, so that's the valley. So then you start moving into the final phase, which is your road to victory. And you got that initial production, like I said before, that really is actually happening in the valley. But once you start getting through that failure cycle and pressing on, not giving up, you start moving into refinement. And that's where the story starts to get solidified and the words start to flow and you start to write with effortless ease. This is where Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about getting into the flow. Refinement is when you get into the flow. Now, I'm going to stress that you don't get into the flow until you have paid your dues going through the anxiety, the frustration, the emotional struggle, and the failure cycles. Most people think there is no price to be paid for creativity. It is. Most people think that the muse is their prostitute to be walking on the street whenever they say go, and that is not the case, people. Understand, you will go through these. You can shorten the process tremendously by practicing and by expectation and understanding. So, like when you expect to write the book, when I pimp my muse, that's yeah, yeah. A lot of people do try to pimp their muses. I hate to say it. But when I sit down for expectation now, I understand that I'm going to pay those dues. I'm going to have some frustration, some emotional struggles, some failure cycles, but I appreciate them. I thank them for coming. And I tell you, thank you so much. Now get the hell on. Let me go on and write, and I just work through them. And that's how I'm able to produce because I don't try to ignore them. I don't try to negotiate them away. I'm like, let's do this. Come on, come with it, but let's get it done. And then once you move from that refinement, that's when you publish that book. Now, I do need to say this part. I get people that will go through and struggle through this whole process to get here, and their biggest one yet hits them where they don't want to publish. A new fear comes up. They have a fear of being seen, discovered, found out. They feel like imposter syndrome. I don't know why. Imposter syndrome, I'll figure that one out too. But it comes right in here when it's time to publish the book. I end up begging some people to publish their books. And I don't know if that's one of you out here that is listening to me live or listening to me on the recording, but if it is, just publish the book. The antidote for getting over those fears is to just do it. Okay? Every story, if it managed to get to this point, it was called into existence by some reader on some subconscious level who needs that book, who needs that story. So go on and publish it. Y'all, I'm telling you, if you could have seen the books I was putting out when I first started, I cringe. And I'm like, Lord, please don't let anybody ever find those books. Oh my God, please don't let that happen. Okay. So I know we covered a lot on the anxiety and the creativity process, Power Grid. Um, but I want you to understand this is real. And a lot of you, this is resonating with you. You're like, yep, that's me. Or, oh, I understand. Oh, is that why I do that? And that's because this is a real process that you go through. And this is why you can't write. So, moving on from that, I'm going to talk to you about the downward spiral of what happens when you don't understand what's happening to you. So, the creativity energy is released. You have all of these emotions, all this stuff that's unchecked. It triggers false beliefs that need to be upgraded. Then, because you don't have your beliefs upgraded and they just run amok, you start having these crazy thoughts. Well, what if this happens? And before you know it, in 0 to 6 seconds, you have gone from an idea to write a book to how you're going to be the laughing stock, or you're going to lose your house, or whatever, wherever these emotions and beliefs take you. And then what ends up happening is when you have the thoughts running amok, you start having behaviors. Now, most people always want to know what's the difference between a behavior and an action. They're one and the same because they have stuff, there's movement attached to them. But how I help people to understand it is I say your behaviors are what you tend to do. Those are your tendencies. And behaviors a lot of times can be invisible to you. In my world, we call them shadows. That's a Jungian term, but we call them shadow sides because you do the stuff and you don't realize you're doing it. Now, I will say your family and friends and people around you can see you doing it all the time, but you're unaware of it. So a lot of unchecked thoughts turn into these shadow behaviors. You know how people talk about I self-sabotage, I have a fear of success, I have this and that. That's because these behaviors are coming. And then what ends up happening is then your actions go back to confirm all this stuff, because the way we are set up is we are set up to have congruence, meaning everything in agreement. And when you when you have unchecked emotions that are triggered by the anxiety, beliefs, thoughts, and behaviors, your actions move you into shock. And we talked about it. Now I will tell you, most people want to say, oh, I have one or the other, but I'm going to submit that most people cycle between the two. So you can easily cycle between parasympathetic and sympathetic shock. One of the things I'll tell you, if you're trying to create something and your sleeping patterns get off whack, you're cycling through parasympathetic and sympathetic shock. Mind spinning when you try to lay down to sleep, can't sleep. Get up, try to write, try to create something, get sleepy, can't focus, can't do that. So you try to lay back down, can't sleep. Am I talking to anyone out here who understands or can see this happening? And then you wonder why you can't write. So this is the downward spiral of what happens when your createxiety goes unchecked. You don't know what you're doing. You don't reframe to change the anxiety to excitement, and then understand what that valley is so that you don't get stuck in it and it becomes your desert imprisonment. Okay? Is this helping anybody? Because I want to make sure, because we just got a few more things I'm going to cover. But I want to make sure that I am helping you get past some stuff so that when you sit down, whether it be tonight, tomorrow, or whenever, you understand how you're going to be able to write, okay? All right, so let's talk about secret number 2. Now, this one, when I did the first one, I forgot. But this is so important, you guys. I want to deal with this real quick. So we're going to talk about comparison. And what I've done is I've put a comparison pyramid up here to show you the main areas that are affected when you get into comparison. Now, when I talk about comparison, I am talking about looking at what someone else is doing and comparing yourself. And I didn't want to clutter this up too much, but what I call it is compare instead of comrade. See, your comrade is someone who is running this journey alongside you, doing the same thing. They're not necessarily on your team, but you have an equal respect for each other and you understand you're doing what you do. Comparison gets into competitiveness. That's where you are looking at them with an adversarial kind of tone. Whether or not you plan to act on it or not, it's still there. And when I say adversarial, it means you want to win. You want to be either, well, most of the time you want to be better, but you don't want to be worse. And so when you get into the comparison, it's what destroys creativity. Have you ever had it where the more you want to put out books and the more you're looking at people that you like, oh, I read his stuff, it's crap. Why is he selling? Why can he write and I can't write? The more you do that, it throws you into emotional turmoil. And I've just listed some of the stuff just to give you an idea. This is not exhaustive. It throws you into jealousy. It throws you into covetousness. That's an old timey word to mean that you want what they have. It gets you confused. You even get resentment. I mean, it can put people into passive aggression where they do little things. Have you ever heard of, and this really does happen, people, have you ever heard of authors going on other authors' pages and either leaving bad reviews or getting their fans and their followers to leave bad reviews on another author's page? It's because of this. And 9 times out of 10, the more that author does that, the less creative they are, the more their production goes down, and they wonder why. Now, another thing is comparison throws you outside of your own timing and pacing. That's where panic starts to come in, because if you are trying to be on someone else's time schedule and when their books hit, you start to panic because you think you've missed an opportunity. And I'm going to tell you now, this messes with the identity of who you are. This throws you into the clarity. You can't get clarity. This, when you get into comparison, it throws you out of alignment with your purpose. That means you mess with, again, your identity. You get into overwhelm. Your focus gets messed up. Your drive is all over the place. You probably end cycling really hard into parasympathetic and sympathetic shock anyway. And then it clouds and blinds you to be able to see your path. Oh my gosh, I was having a conversation with a person who is writing bad boy romance. And they're doing it, and you're going to see why they're doing it in just a minute. I'm going to show you some things. But they're doing it because everybody else is doing it, and they feel like they should be further along in their writing success journey. And so they admitted to me, they said, I hate writing it. I hate it. I feel dirty when I write it. I don't want to write it. So what it has done, by comparing themselves to others, they have clouded their own way they think about stuff, which is perception, and they can't see a different way to get out of it, which is the perspective. Therefore, they don't have any clarity. They have hindered their own personal prosperity and profitability right here. Does this make sense? You guys give me some feedback, because I want to know that I'm not out here swimming alone by myself. Comparisonitis, I got this. I love it. I love it. So, okay, yes, this makes sense. Okay. All right, you guys, I'm just telling you, this is for real. This is really what is going on. This is another secret why you can't write. How can you write when all this is going on? And like I said, these are just the top things. There's so much other crap underneath it. I told one person, I said, you got whiplash trying to go on all these different people's pages to see how their books are ranking when you should just be focusing on yours. you know so, and okay, well, good, some other people, they're not, and that's good if you're not in comparison, but be careful, because, and I'm not saying that everybody compares, but just be careful that you don't let even the industry try to dictate where you should be. There was this thing that was going on last year and this year, and I had to talk to a lot of people personally, where they started believing that if you didn't make 6 figures your very first year of being a self-publisher, you were a failure and you needed to stop. I do know where it started and I do know how it started. And it was because of comparison, where a guy or two came out, sat down, wrote a book, it took off, and thus they made six figures in like 9 months. And so now there are all these groups that if you write this many books in this amount of time, you should be making six figures. And I know a lot of people who have written 20 books don't make $50,000 and have done it at that time. It is not about, just doing that. It is run your own race. Okay. All right. So this is what I really want to show you guys, because a lot of people are very familiar with this, but they don't understand how it applies to you when you are in the throes of creativity. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it just shows you kind of like some of the needs that people have in different facets of their life, different times of their life, or whatever. Now, what I want to say is most people think that you go up this thing and like once you've gotten basic needs met, then you move on. No, you can be in any one of these stages at any time. Transcendence is no better or higher than basic, and self-esteem and all that kind of stuff. You could have all of these going on at the same time. I am bringing this up because and don't get me wrong, I like them. I like them, but somebody's talking about 20 books. Uh, I like them. Don't get me wrong. What I was saying is that don't get it confused that once you get to cognitive, then and you've arrived and you'll never have to go back to basic. That's not true. There are scripts that we run in our minds. And as a creative, one of the problems that people don't understand, when you tap into the creative, you tap into every part of you that is invisible. And most people who are so analytical have a problem with writing because they do not understand that this is what happens. So I'm giving this to you guys. I'm going to just go over this really quick. So basic. Basic is where your basic needs are met. Like you need to breathe, you need air, you need shelter, that kind of stuff. And so because of that, most people think, oh, I have that done. But I'm going to tell you, guess what anxiety is? Anxiety is an assault on your basic needs. Because what happens when you get anxious? You can't breathe, right? You feel like you're going to die. You feel like your basic needs are not getting met. So this is real, and people can be in this. What about people who don't have clean water to drink? And that happens all over the world, US and everywhere else. Um, let's see. Uh, oh my gosh, that's funny. Somebody was talking about, the comparison to make them jealous. Yes, and thank you for being so humble and honest about that. Because some people try to be so high and mighty, and I'd be like, you got shadow parts because I can see it. Anyway, I'm not going to go through that. But getting back to these hierarchy of needs. So, basic, you can still have those needs. I know, for real, you guys, I know millionaires who are in this level right here. And so don't think that the more money you have moves you up this scale. It really has to deal with who you are and what you believe you need. So safety and security. Safety and security is shelter. It's getting a job and those types of things. It's being able to sleep in peace. So this one is having peace. This one is being okay to relax a little bit. And then love and belonging. That's where you start to have a need to get along and have security and all those types of things. And somebody was asking me about this the other day, and they were saying, "Well, why do I still?" They're not a writer, but they have accomplished a lot, and they were like, "Why can't I get over the need to want people to like me?" And I was like, "It's because love and belonging is your jam." That's where you are most of the time and your primary access of your hierarchy of needs. They were like, love and belonging. I was like, yeah, love and belonging really helps you with self-identity. So don't get it wrong. Everybody, to some extent, needs to have love and belonging because it helps you understand in context who you are. If you don't understand who you are, if you don't have self-identity, that's going to be detrimental to the quality of your life. So it does matter that you have love, you belong to somebody, to some group, you associate with something. So this is not a bad thing. And FYI, most of what you write, most of the products that you buy are going to be encompassed in these three areas. So if you think about it, basic, we buy bottled water now because we don't want the crap, that you can get in regular water. Safety and security. You might, if you're looking for a job, you might buy a process on how to write a resume so you can get a better job. If you have a house, you might get an alarm system so you can feel safe and secure in your house. Love and belonging. Well, what if you want to have love and belonging? Well, the obvious stuff is like dating apps and makeup and social media and all of that kind of stuff where you can group together, find each other. But there are a lot of books that will put people into love and belonging because of something. And I'm not going to go down this rabbit trail, but it's called parapsychology, where when people read a good, well, it doesn't even have to be a good book, but if they read a book and they associate or connect with the characters in the book, they can build what is called a parapsychology relationship where it's one-sided. That's why you have people that were willing to go fisticuffs over the different houses of Harry Potter. Are you a Huff and Puff, Gryffindor? I know I'm murdering the hits here, but are you Slytherin or whatever? And that is because they have love and belonging. That book helped trigger that, and thus they found meaning and identity in their love and belonging, and that book was in there. So you can actually figure out what types of books you're writing based on the hierarchy of needs. So let's look at cognitive. Cognitive simply means meaning of life. This is where philosophy, psychology, meaning, and those types of things, definition of self, all come into being. You're going to have a lot of self-help books here, and philosophy and those types of things here. And then self-esteem. Now, love and belonging helps you to get a self-identity. Self-esteem is where you start to project that identity and you want to feel really good about the identity. And I stress this because sometimes people get love and belonging and self-esteem confused. Now, when you're talking about self-esteem, that's where you get a lot of success books, a lot of business improvement books. They live in this area because they help people to feel esteem, edify, build up, those types of things. So you can't build up what you don't already have a foundation for. And that's why it's up here, because if you don't have your air to breathe, you're going to die. If you don't feel safe, you might get killed. If you don't have love and belonging, you don't know who you are. If you're not cognitive, you have no idea of what to make meaning of what is life and what you're doing. So that's another reason why self-esteem is up here. And then self-actualization, that's the perfection of self. And when Maslow first did this pyramid, this is where he actually stopped. But he came back and realized that there was another one called transcendence. And transcendence is when you transpire above or outside of yourself and your needs are not just based on you. Transcendence is where you're going to have a lot of volunteerism, community, wanting to edify and help others and that kind of stuff. And self-actualization, you'll have books, or if you're talking about books where they are more so about giving back, you'll find a lot of how-to books here, to be honest with you, where people want to give back to society and train them. Transcendence, this is where you have charity, philanthropy, and those types of things. Transcendence, products that, we're raising money for charity, or books on how to start not-for-profit and that kind of stuff. All right, so I just really kind of wanted to give you guys this so that you can understand part of the reason why you have to deal with all this emotional crap, because it's part of your DNA needs and how you can use this for how you create your stories. So I'm just going to cut to the chase and tell you, when you're thinking about story and all this kind of stuff and you want to connect, because we'll talk a little bit about connection, most of your stuff is going to fall in love and belonging. Boom. There you have it. Now, I will also say this. The books that are the products that are going to sell for the most are going to be here: cognitive, self-esteem, and self-actualization. So if you buy a philosophy book, you can probably get way more for that philosophy book, but you're not going to be able to sell it to as many people. Think about how many people buy success and business improvement books and how much they pay for them and the self-esteem thing. Now, it does not mean that the higher up you necessarily make more. It can be, but it doesn't always have to be. I know a lot of people who are self-actualized and don't own jack. they they're just self-actualized. So don't get it twisted. But I did want to put this in here so that it could actually help you to understand a little bit more why you might find yourself comparing and why you might want to make sure that you are protecting who you are through your identity. All right, let's move on. So the next thing is let's talk about secret number 3, where to start. This is another thing that gets people highly confused. I just want you to know 9 times out of 10, you're starting in the wrong place. All right, so wrong place. When you're starting to write, thinking and writing about a situation, thinking or writing about what is popular or a hot seller, a story idea, a plot, or a character. How many of you guys have done that? Okay. The right place to start is working on a primary emotion, trying to trigger reader empathy, thinking of true, authentic distress that you can exploit even, having a strong dilemma, meaning a choice that somebody has to make, and how to win or overcome a distress or an emotion that may be negative. This is where the pros start. This is where the general populace or the novice starts. You can always come up with this kind of stuff very easily when you start here. Don't believe me? Let me show you. But before I move on, anybody have any questions about this? Does anything I've said so far make sense? Because I want to make sure that y'all are staying with me. Remember, I said, please keep your mind engaged. Don't drift off. Don't let this come off as being simplicity. Because when you make it through on the other side of this, you will be able, I dare you. I dare you to sit down and try to write, keeping this in mind, and not be able to do better than you've done before. I just dare you to. And it doesn't mean you took any kind of uh, grammar class or any of that kind of stuff. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about more good stuff about this. All right. So this is some of the stuff that I want you to really hone in on. How to increase your writing speed. Now, I just got through talking to you about where to start, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that. But before I do that, I need to give you this so that it makes sense. So to increase your writing speed, everybody perk up, listen to what I'm saying. Are you still with me? Let me say, yeah, let me do an energy check in the room. Yes or no? Is this making sense? Are you still with me? Let me actually go in and look at the stuff to see who's paying attention and all of this. Because I really want you to get this, okay? It's important to me because I spend a lot of time on this and I know it works. Okay, so to increase your writing speed, based on everything you know right now, I'm going to tell you, you have 2 main ways that you think, whether you are realizing it or not. Okay? And to increase your writing speed, you are not trying to only do one or the other. I am giving you the tools so that you understand why you do what you do and how to do it. What to do if you get lots of story ideas, but they solve a problem, huh? But what to do if you get lots of story ideas, but they solve a problem? Can you rephrase that? I don't understand how to answer that for you. I want to answer, I just don't understand what you're asking. All right, so to increase your writing speed, you have System 1 thinking, which is Dr. John Elliott, who is a psychologist. I adore him. He talks about the System 1 thinking as the trusting mind. And System 1 thinking, you can Google if you want to, but System 1 thinking is easy thinking. It's the knee-jerk reaction. So if somebody say, you hungry? Yeah, I can eat. That's the first thing that shows up. It's the easy, gut, intuitive flow thinking. It's the creative thinking. It's, that I don't have to think about it. I just do it. It's that in the zone, right brain kind of stuff. When you want to increase your writing, work on your System 1 thinking by sprinting. I have seen so many people crash and burn from sprinting because they feel physically exhausted after they do it. I don't know if anybody in the room has ever tried to sprint and you felt exhausted, you didn't want to do it anymore. You're like, this doesn't work for me. I'm going to tell you why that happens. Uh, Okay, I'm sorry. Somebody was clarifying. They said instead of starting with a story idea, you want to solve a problem. Yes, the reason why I said solve a problem because a story idea can be a problem, but it's hard to infuse a problem into a story idea once you've come up with it. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to help you reorder what you do to make it easier so that you can increase your writing speed and get your books written. So if you think of a problem to be solved, you can always figure out a story. Think about the great parables. Somebody wants to show you how to figure out a problem, how to figure out a difficulty, and they tell you a story. So they address the problem first and then put a story around it. But if you come up with a story idea and then you try to stuff a problem to solve in it, you're going to be spending time unnecessarily. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So now getting back to what I was saying with how to increase your writing speed. With system one thinking, like I said, it's trusting. It's the easy right brain thinking. To increase it, to make it better, do sprinting. Now, if you have tried to sprint, and what sprinting is you set a timer and for a short burst of time, you just try to write. You try to free flow write. A lot of people, when they feel exhausted after sprinting, it is because they are combating the habit and tendency of system two thinking. You know you're in system two thinking if you're trying to stop and correct the misspelling of the word or rephrase or make sense of what you're writing. That's system two thinking, and that's called training thinking. So to increase your word count, you want to flow. You want to allow yourself to make mistakes. That is why if you are sprinting and you are editing at the same time, you are really not sprinting. You're just trying to speed up system two thinking, and that is not what system two thinking is for. Okay. When you use system one thinking and you do it, you increase the ability to get into flow, to get into the creative right side of the brain, to get into the intuitive, the muse, if you will. And it increases your word count. It decreases the inner critic. It decreases mental looping and it decreases overwhelm. Now, there is a different side to increasing your writing. You can't always just system one thing because you will have a hot mess and your books will be all over the place. Have you ever heard people say, "Oh yeah, I wrote this book today and I was just in the flow," and then you try to read it and they all over the place. You're like, "Can you pick a genre? Can you pick a theme?" I don't know about you guys, but I see those books all the time, so it's very real for me. Now I'm like, "Oh, you really did get into your flow," but now it is time for you to use system two thinking. So they work in concert with each other. So think about it. You get into the flow, you knock out 3,000 words today in your system one thinking. Then you turn around and you say, I did my 3,000 words in 2 hours. I'm going to use 2 hours to use my system two thinking now to clean it up. And when you get through, your system two thinking goes through that and you might end up with 4,000 words. But what system two thinking is, it's the slower, methodical thinking. Dr. Elliott calls it the training mind. It's the one that we go to school for. It's harder, it's analytical, it's very cautious, logical, uses the front part of the brain. It's process driven, concrete, and structured. It's editorial, and it's the left side of the brain. We use it to edit, refine, and polish what we've written. It increases your writing craft, your synergistic connection. I'm going to explain what that means in a minute. Your mental processing, and it's very labor intensive. Does this make sense, you guys? Just want to make sure y'all staying with me. And that this makes sense to you. Okay, great. Yeah, makes sense. Good. All right. So this is how you increase your writing speed. Now, why am I bringing up system one and two thinking? And I was just talking about where to start on your story because there is an emotion creation matrix that I've put together that will take you through creating through emotion. And I'm going to show you how you can use what I just talked about. So the 5 steps are, and I say steps because this is where you start: empathy, emotion, evolution, exploration, and experience. So when you want to start writing and you want to start writing fast, use System 1 thinking for empathy. And all you want to do is you want to figure out what is going to move the reader, what is going to hook the reader from an emotional standpoint. When I first started and I was learning that I needed to have an opening hook for my book, I thought that meant explosions, action, and dialogue. I even taught that. Then I started grappling with it, reading more books that have longer longevity, more quality of writing, and I understood that the real hook is when the reader can empathize with what's going on in the story, mainly the character. Because I'm going to let you guys in on something. When you're first starting out, remember the person that asked me about why not start with a story idea? That's because that tends to be action and activity oriented. Story is not action and activity oriented, it's emotion oriented. And to truly hook someone, you hook them to make them feel. Action makes people think. You want them to feel first. If they feel, then they fall for your story. And the best way to do that is for you to employ that gut thinking, that System 1 trusting thinking, to start writing about what can make that person empathize with or feel for your character. Does that make sense, you guys? Because once you do that, you're going to use that System 1 thinking and writing to continue listing emotions that you want to hit. And once you list those emotions, look for the one that's the strongest, and that becomes your primary emotion that your story is going to be about. And then once you have how you're going to hook them with the empathy and how you're going to make them feel deeper with the emotion, then you want to look at, okay, this is where I'm going to make them feel deeper. Where do I want them to end up? That becomes the evolution. When you get to evolution, this is where you start moving to possibly employing some of your System 2 thinking, because you're going to use synergy and connection. And what that is, that's just a fancy way for saying that you as a human being have this database of knowledge and you are so unique that you can make connections between what might seem like unrelated information. And that's where story idea comes from. That's how somebody can write the same story over and over again, and it's a different story. That is why the story of Christ, Harry Potter, Star Wars, the Iliad, Wizard of Oz, Matrix, all of those are the same story, but because of this evolution, System 2 thinking to connect and make different connections within the same idea, you come up with a different story. So then once you figure out, this is how I'm going to hook them, this is how I'm going to make them feel, this is where I want them to end up, then you start exploring. So exploration is the journey. This is where your plot is going to come in. All of this here is story. This is plot. Now, do you see why I said you start in the wrong place? You do this before you even come up with a story idea. So, for instance, what this looks like: empathy. How am I going to make them empathize? One of the things most people love to do, especially when they're writing little kids, they'll give you an orphan. Orphan Annie. She out there, she's spunky, she want to make it go. Then she has this emotion where you just can't help but feel for her. You just want to adopt her. And then you know that the evolution is that you're going to get her adopted by Daddy Warbus. But the exploration is going to be that she has to overcome the evil foster mother and free the other little girls. And so then you got to put in some experiences to make it enjoyable, to show how she got from the orphan to the adopted little princess. Boom. Do you see how easy that is now? Now, it will take some practice, but this is how you create the emotion creation matrix so that when you sit down, your writing becomes better. People ask me now, why is it? Because I had somebody ask me this recently. Why is it that most of the big authors, when you ask them about story idea, they say stories are cheap. It's because stories are, I mean, when I say story ideas are cheap, it is. There's a story idea dime a dozen. The problem is, how do you execute and implement on it? This is how you execute and implement. System one thinking, system one thinking, system one thinking, switching over to system two thinking, system two thinking, system two thinking. When it's laid out, that's how it goes. Now, you guys talk to me. Let me know. Make sure this is making sense for you, because starting at the baseline of emotion will tell you without a shadow of a doubt the best story to come up with. So if somebody gave you an assignment and said, I want you to write a new version of Wizard of Oz, and you're sitting there trying to figure out a new version of Wizard of Oz, what I would do is I would just take this and I'd be like, what's the empathy? How do I want them to empathize with her? Do I make her an orphan? Do I grow her up and do something else with her? What's the primary emotion I want her to have? Then where do I want her to end up? What kind of exploration do I want to take on this theme of her emotion, her empathy, and where I want her to end up? And then let me put in the experience that she's going to have to go through this journey. You see, it makes it easier. You know, to be honest with you, if you are like, say for instance, you decide you want to write for the television industry, you can use this process here. Because trust me, a lot of times you don't get to pick your own idea. They tell you what the story has to be, but you got to make it sparkle and shine. That is another reason why this is so important. There was a research study done. You can find it in this book called Made to Stick, where they talk about it. And they talk about how they took two different stories. One was about one little girl, and then one was about a whole bunch of starving little kids. And they wanted to see which one would have the most impact with the reader. So they gave the stories out. And the people who got the story of the one little girl gave more than the people who got the story of all the thousands of kids who were starving. And they found that it had nothing to do with how bad her situation was or how bad the other kid's situation was. What they found was that they were better able to single in and show empathy for one person in distress. So when you have empathy and distress, singling in on a main character, bringing out a primary emotion, promising that you're going to evolve them out of that crap, and then exploring, deep diving everything that you can do to make it really uh, blossom and grow, and then putting experience with it, you have a solid story. I don't know about you guys, but this process is what helps me have the kind of stuff I get in my mailbox all the time from people that say, oh, please hurry up and write faster. Oh, I love your stories. I learned so much. You make me feel so much. You had me crying. You had me this. You had me getting mad with you. All these different things. And it's because of this emotion creation matrix. Okay, I'm going to move on. So I want to just talk to you remind you of a few more quick tips. And this is, you want to write pop, Britney Spears, not classical, Beethoven. What I mean by that is, even though you're taking them through this emotional matrix, you want it to be lighthearted, where they don't have to work for it, where there's not a high learning curve. You want it to be entertaining as well as educational. You want it to be edutainment, but make it light and easy. Again, make it easy for your reader and make it look easy to them. Don't have it where it's clunky and cumbersome and all this kind of stuff. And another thing is, in that story, make it have insane value. And when I say insane value, make it as potent as possible. Now, the reason why I want to say that is, there is a way that you can get started writing where it is going to sustain you. And that is to learn the art of writing short reads. Now, there's a difference between short reads and short stories and all of that. And real quick, short reads are a category that came up in Amazon. Amazon in 2011, they started doing what was called Kindle Select. And where it was is they went to Stephen King and some others. They're like, we know you got these short stories. Why don't you publish them on our platform and see how they do? And they took off. And what they learned was there were a lot of people who were willing to read a short story, but weren't willing to read a novel. And it was so much so that it took off. And so when you had Stephen King and all these other people making a killing off these short stories selling for the same amount as their novels, they're like, oh my gosh, there's something to this. Well, the problem is of course, the Me Too people came in, and those are all the people who want to get in on whatever is easy, whatever they think is a quick dollar, and they put crap in there. It was barely a story, all this fluff, and they couldn't understand why they weren't making money. Well, they weren't making money because they didn't understand that, yes, it needs to be popular, it needs to be easy on the reader and to the reader to read, but it does need to have insane value. And the way you do that is going back to that 5E process where you infuse that story with something and you make it very potent. And then it makes it where you can have a long-term plan, because I'm going to tell you, if you can get 5 books out for every one novel and you're still able to charge $2.99, it makes it easier for you to have a long-term sustainable process and plan for how you're going to self-publish. Now, when I talk about these things, I want you to understand that you can do this. And what I'm going to show you right here is this is called the short reads entertainment model that I've come up with. And this has come up because I've had to write so many of these things over the last year, and they just exploded. I started seeing a pattern. So I wanted to give this to you tonight, on me. Just give this to you, because if you grasp this, then I feel like I will have done you a solid. So what you do is you do your research. And once you do your research and figure out who your ideal avatar is, your ideal reader, you want to fulfill the experience they want to have. So remember I talked about that 5E model? Give them the experience they want to have. When you give them the experience and you make it of exceptional value, you give them the empathy, you hook them, make them care about the reader, it becomes highly relevant to them. So much so that you build a connection with them and you explode their expectation. Therefore, they want to do what? They want to tell everybody about this great book they read, because what do? That's how 50 Shades of Grey took off. People were like, you got to read this book. And it got there because they were excited. And then they had WOM, word of mouth marketing. Now, this fear of missing out, this is one of the things that has fascinated me over the last year or so. For some reason, I have developed a large following of retired women who love to read my books in book clubs. And I was like, I don't understand how this happened. So I figured out, because I started getting Facebook direct messages to my pen name for that. And I just started asking, and they said, oh, well, so-and-so told me. Oh, well, so-and-so told me. Well, so-and-so invited me to this. And I found out I don't ever advertise to that demographic, but they are one of my fastest growing demographics, and it is because of word of mouth. In his new book, Perennial Seller, I highly suggest you get it. It's by Ryan Holiday. He talks about what makes certain works of creative expression, and he does talk about books, what makes them last. And one of the things that makes them last is word of mouth. Word of mouth marketing is 20 to 50 times better than the best targeted paid and organic traffic and conversion you can get. Word of mouth has an immortality attachment to it, whereas advertising has a lifespan attachment, meaning you buy an ad to advertise your book, and next year you have to continue to spend more money to advertise, but each month that goes by, your advertisement gets weaker and weaker. Whereas word of mouth gets stronger and stronger. The more people saying, yeah, I read that book, you got to get it. Oh, I read that book too, you got to get it. It triggers fear of missing out. if you want to look at it at this particular time, Game of Thrones. People that would have normally not watched that show watch it because of word of mouth marketing from their peers who they trust and fear of missing out. And what that ends up doing is that ends up creating what is called a buzz book. Now, when you're writing short reads and they're potent, they're done the way that I train, and because of my experience writing them, my experience helping others write them, and my extensive research on what makes a great short read, you go through this process and you create a buzz book. Now, when you create a buzz book, that book starts to have a life of its own because you got all three of these elements already put in, because you're going to learn how to do each one of these steps and write the book. So when you do each one of these steps, making sure that you have adequately, not even adequately, more than adequately fulfilled the market experience, their expectations are exploded because you've given exceptional value. You've used the 5 E's of empathy, emotion, evolution, excuse me, exploration and experience to give them high relevance. And they get so freaking excited, they tell everybody and anybody who will listen that you need to get this book. You create a buzz book. Okay. So that is one of the things that is most important that you need to know and why you need to be writing. So I wanted to give you this stuff tonight so that you can see there is a way to do this. It is not hard. You can do this. Now, I want to make sure that I have given you value. I want to make sure that you understand, and I want to answer your questions. So I am going to be doing a recap and going over this, but I want to just tell you really quickly, if you'll permit me just a few moments, that I have a program that I'm going to be opening up. Some people actually that are on here right now are already in it. They've already started seeing some of the stuff we have coming down the pike, and they're like, oh my gosh, wow, this is amazing. Well, what it is called my short read success formula, but it's not just a program. It's a hands-on. And the reason why I'm doing this is because in today's society, it's not enough for me to give you information. It's not enough for you to watch a video. It's not enough for me to do a training like this. You know what really helps you get the book written? What helps you get the book written is being able to know that for 30 days, you're going to be able to come into a live Facebook group where you can actually sometimes see me writing. You can see me answering questions on what sentence should I use here? Why did I use that? What needs to be on the first page of this section of the book? I'm even going to give you templates that I use for short reads that will tell you in this section, when you have successfully done this, you can move on to the next section. And I have a quick little list of things that you need to make sure happen in this section of your story. I'll even give you guesstimates of word count for this section to accomplish it in, and some examples. I have a few short stories that I'm going to let you guys see where you can see where I did this stuff, and the books are published and selling. So one of the things that I found with helping all these different people, they were like, you know what? I know theory. I know this lady. She says, I know theory. I know structure. She says, I can edit people's books. But when it comes time to sit down and write, I can't write. I just can't write. And after hearing that and working with a few people, and now I do it all the time, where we actually get in there and I'll write a sample sentence. I'll help you get started and I turn it over, you start writing. You know why? Because when you start to see something, you activate your system one thinking where the creativity is able to come forward. And now that I've taught you what can impede the creative energy and keep you from writing, you know how to combat that. You know that this is excitement. You know there's going to be a little frustration. You know that you can get past that. You know that your initial production is going to finally move into refinement. You know that you're going to vacillate back and forth between using that gut instinct, system one thinking, followed by that editorial system two thinking. You know that at any given point that you've got 5 things that you need to be hitting. You need to be empathetic, have emotion, have evolution. They got to go somewhere. They got to make a journey. They have to have exploration. It has to be wide and deep and then they have to have some type of experience for this to matter. All those things are things that we cover in here, and I wanted to give you that invitation. All right, so the invitation is this. Our preliminary for this starts tomorrow. And from August 1st through September 5th, I am going to be devoting this. Now, I actually have 2 books I need to knock out. So I'm going to be writing my books and helping you guys write yours. This is a step-by-step, hands-on kind of action-taking kind of thing. What if you can't make it in there every day? I don't expect you to make it in there every day, but what I do expect you to do is get in there and see what's happening, use the power of the group, and get your book done. I am going to help you that when you get through with this, you will have produced a minimum of 10,000 words. The sweet spot is a 10,000 to 30,000 word book that you're going to put up and start selling. And guess what? I expect for it to be an ugly little baby. I expect for it not to be perfect, but I expect for it to be done because this is what's going to help you get into this. All right, so that's what we've got. I'm not going to read all this stuff to you, but just know that this is an opportunity for you to know that you can do this. So here's our quick little 30-day breakdown. The first week is actually the preliminary, where I talk about you and your writing, you and the reader, and all that kind of stuff. And then I move you into getting ready for stage 1. And I mean, for week 1, which is setting the stage. Week 2 is when we start. Week 3 is all about story. And then week 4, we're going to bring it home. And then again, I'm going to be doing some live Q&A sessions. We're going to have 4 of those. I'm going to be doing some live streaming. We'll have some sprinting groups and some writing appointments and all that stuff. So you'll have all of that as well. And then this is the writing breakdown so that you can see how you can actually get this done. So I don't leave you high and dry and just say you got to go write a book. No, I tell you what I expect week by week based on what you are learning and what you know. So each week, and yes, I do get people asking this, I'm going to be giving you an outline for if you want to do a nonfiction book as well. Because that's a little different, but I'll show you some conversational stuff and how to break it down for your nonfiction book. So week 2 through 4 is when you're writing, and therefore by the end of that, you should have a 10,000 to 30,000 word book that will get you into the short reads category of Amazon. I'll show you some strategies to get you into the other platforms like Apple, Nook, which is Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Google Play, and some others. And so that's what you have. All right. So the modules, I have 7 modules, and what I'm really proud of is the stability module, because this is what you do after you've gotten that first book done. I have a lot of people that I hate that this has happened to them, but they have become one-hit wonders. They don't understand why they can't seem to keep the momentum going. They don't know what to do next. They don't know how to turn this into a viable business. And so the stability module talks and addresses that. You know, I'm kind of like a dinosaur in regards to a lot of people who came in thinking, oh, I can make a lot of money in this. And then they get overwhelmed with the emotional toll that it takes, and they don't understand how to keep going. They don't understand how to keep writing. And so the stability module helps you with that. And of course, you will get my guides, resources, and checklists that I'm going to be giving you. All right, so with that being said, let me just do a quick recap of what we covered over this, okay? So what we covered was, we went over the 3 secrets, and those are having the right expectation. You get what you expect. If you expect nothing, you get nothing. If you expect to write a book and finish it, you will get it. It may not come at that moment, but it will happen because your body, mind, and everything about you has to be congruent. It has to be in one accord. And whatever you expect is what you get. It overrides what you want and what you hope, because it imprints the subconscious to make it so. So whatever you expect is what you're going to get. Number 2, comparison. Whether you overtly or covertly compare yourself, that can hinder you. If you are looking outward at what's happening to others or the industry, and it's not happening for you, you have some things that can be affected. Your very identity as a published author or a non-published author can suffer. Your profitability, focus, your clarity, all of those things can fall into disrepair based on comparison. So instead of comparing, look at people as comrades and look at the industry as for you and not against you. And so what if so and so is making six figures in their first year? Doesn't matter. That's not your timeline. You're running your own race and you're doing what you need to do. And then number three, knowing where to start. That's where we looked at the wrong way of starting with plots and characters and all that stuff instead of starting from the primary emotion and using that 5E emotion creation matrix to be able to outline where to start on a story so that all the other pieces fall into place. And then we did look at the way you want to increase your writing with the system 1 and system 2 thinking. System 1 thinking being that easy right brain thinking where you get into the flow and you use sprinting as a process to increase that. And then system 2 thinking follows it up. Once you have spit out all of that quick writing, you go back and you clean it up and you increase your ability to do that and do it faster by editing, by revising, and by synthesizing and connecting things that you know in unique and exciting ways. And so we looked at that, and then we looked at the entertainment model for short reads because that's going to be the best place for you to be able to get into the market and make a living at this. Short reads is still a great opportunity. It will continue to be an opportunity because it capitalizes on the commodity that people use the most, which is time. And if you can give them a great, satisfying product that does not take a lot of time, that they can have the sense that they finish, they are going to buy it and they will buy it from you over and over again. So that's what we talked about. Anybody have any questions? Because what I also want to do is I want to invite you into this opportunity. Now, let me tell you, it's not for everybody. I understand that. And if it's not for you, I thank you. I hope you got a lot out of what I was offering for you today. But I do want to tell you that my short read success formula has come out of the years of me doing this, helping others, and experiencing what it takes to be consistent in this. And so we've gone over a few of the things, but I've got way more. And so the Createxiety process is something that you'll know, but you'll also go through it to more depth. The 5E emotion creation matrix, we went over that tonight, but I'm actually going to give you sheets and prompts to be able to help you plot it out. So just like you would use a plot, you'll use the 5E emotion creation matrix to plot out how to get started and make a great story. Then the entertainment model. That's where you're learning how to make a buzz book. I break it down and show you how to do the research, how to come up with your avatar, how to make sure that you are doing a fulfilling book that fulfills what your specific market wants based on the genre that you want to write in. Oh, and by the way, I train you to understand better than most the difference between a genre and a trope. I train you to understand what are the expectations, what are the metaphors, and get this. A lot of people don't realize that you market differently for the different genres. I go over that with you. Okay. Now, what I didn't cover tonight was I give you the reader induction process. This is how to really hook your reader. And this is where we get into what words to put on the page. And I tell you what you're doing in this particular section of the book. So when I talk about that template, I'll give you, if this is the induction process and this is that stage or that stage, kind of things you can put in there. And then one of the things that I have is a lot of people don't know how to implement anything. So I show you how to actually do the work. And I give you an implementation structure. And again, that stability, what to do after you've written the book, I give you the process and the blueprint. So there you have it. Those are some of the things that we cover in the Short Reads Success Formula. So if you want to learn more, what I'd like for you to do is I want you to understand that you can get access to the live boot camp right now. You'll get the recordings, you'll get access to me in that group, and you'll get the training but you'll have me creating with you. And you can get started now. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is the lowest it's going to be. I will be doing some in the future. I don't know the exact dates, but I'll be doing some in the future, but they won't be this low. And the reason why is because, let's face it, I'm going to teach you skills that you'll never have to worry about learning again. You'll just continue to grow on them, and you'll be able to make real income, sustainable income every month after this. All right. So if you look at it like this is like a daily investment that's less than buying a large pizza to learn a lifelong skill that you're going to continue to make money with. Okay. So in order to do that, I would like for you to go to this page, michellespiva.com//SR success. michellespiva.com/SR success. And join me. We will be getting started. If you can't make a training, there will be a recording. You're going to get daily prompts. You'll have access to me. And I'm just grateful that I'm going to be doing this. And the reason why I'm doing this is because, like I said before, it's my life calling. I get better each time I do this and I give back. It's time for me to do this. Plus, I've got to write these books anyway. And I figure if I have to write them, then why not bring you along for the journey? And I will say, the short reads, oh my gosh, that is where you want to be. But so many people are trying to do it and they're not doing it right because they don't understand how to get a good short read out. You know, there's this famous saying that says, I would have written you a short note, but I didn't have time. And so I wrote you this letter. And most people think, oh, writing shorter is easier. That's not true. Writing shorter and potent in the way that the best short reads are done, you have to understand the process. And that's what I'm going to be showing you in this short read success. Now, if you thought you got value tonight in this training, understand I'm going to be doing 4 more live trainings. I'm going to be giving you training that breaks down the process of the structure of book, how to implement the stuff that I have, and keeping you on task for expectations of how to make sure you finish your short reads. So this is a book camp. This is a project where you will be producing a book, and you won't just be going off and writing on your own. You'll be able to be in a live environment with help. And I think I'm a pretty great cheerleader. I really do, so I'm just going to put it out there. When you got me inspiring you, how can you not write? All right. So that's what I wanted to present as an opportunity to you to take advantage of that now. And let me know if you have any questions. So now I'm going to open it up for questions. So any questions? And thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for learning. And I really do hope this has been of value to you. That's what I'm going to say. Yes. And thank you all my fellow students. Thank you a few of the students who are already in the program and enjoying it already for coming and learning with me tonight. That blesses my heart. Thank you guys so much. So now I'm going to open it up to any questions you have. Any questions? And thank you so much. This is Michelle Spiva. Thank you so much. And I will see you inside. Ask your questions. I'm going to answer those. But thank you so much. So go to michellespiva.com, michellespiva.com, SR Success. I'm going to put that into the group right now so that you can click on it and get you started, okay?